Greetings, I'm Tanya Abreu, Senior Advisor to Power Up Nursing. And we are a platform online in hospitals and at events for more than 20,000 subscribees, as well as hundreds of thousands of nurses with our podcasts that include this one, which is relatively new, and Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse with Leanne Meyer, which is not so new, but has a following of over 100,000 nurses all around the world. If you would like to right now take a moment to get on our mailing list and to learn where to find more videos, go on to www.powerupnursing.com and just leave us an address. We don't inundate with emails, we inundate with inspiration and knowledge. Also, we do have a YouTube, which is Power Up Nursing, that you will be able to follow along, share our videos, and of course, see them again, along with some evergreen training webinars that will be starting in April. Thanks. So today is an extraordinary learning experience. You know, my little byline that I like to put up on the screen as I do these media moments is Power Up Nursing is a new world of healthcare. It is nurse-led healthcare. And we've always known, even before COVID, that the weight of nursing and patient care and outcomes always falls squarely on the shoulder of nurses. And in order to improve and spread a better type of medical delivery system in the United States, we need new perspectives, new strategies, and new voices of nurse leaders to take us there. Today, we have a non-nurse, but someone who has been working with healthcare providers for years, professionally with her own company that she is the CEO and founder of, and then again personally as a patient who found her way through allopathic healthcare, integrative medicine, to beating a rather ominous cancer diagnosis, which I'm sure she will share some today. I myself faced a 6-month diagnosis. It's hard for me to even talk about it 14 years later when you sit across from a doctor who tells you you have less than a year to enjoy life and it changes everything. And you become a healthcare user like never before. And you meet people like I'm going to introduce shortly that provide new vision, new experiences, but most importantly to us at Power Up Nursing, scientifically validated approaches to healthcare that will not only wow you, but will solve some very complicated healthcare challenges. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome Ms. Jen Payer from health-provides.com to talk a little bit today about a new science called gemotherapy. Well, it's not new, it's ancient, but it's new to us in a scientifically validated way called gemotherapy, and it is the science of plant stem cell research and therapy. Jen, there you are.
Hello. So excited to be
Hi,
here.
and
And just
welcome.
a little teeny difference. It's not health dash provides, it's nature dash provides.
Oh my goodness. I'm so sorry. Here,
That's
there it is.
okay.
There
No
it
worries.
is. See,
There it is.
ask. I'm sorry. I was just getting into the whole idea. You know, when I had my cancer diagnosis, stem cells were considered barbaric. You would
Mhm.
go to the back alleys of someplace in Mexico for a stem cell. However, in Europe and Israel and other places where I sought some answers, stem cell was a very early solution
Yeah.
to cancer, right? And
Yeah.
to helping bad cancer cells be annihilated by healthy cancers, by healthy human cells. So that was human stem cell science. And we can read now volumes on anti-aging, uh, organ regeneration. It's crazy. It's almost science fiction where stem cell science is coming out using human biological cells. But there is newly released science into our medical annals, as well as experts and professors and medical doctors who are saying that we've known for years and years that herbs and nature provide very safe and effective approaches to healing. And now there's even a more intense variety. And that's why you're here today, to fill our nurses in and to educate me more on what we call, right, plant stem cell therapy. Go
Yes.
ahead. The floor is yours.
All right. Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. As Tanya said, I do work a lot with practitioners, and a huge part of my mission after recovering from a pretty intense cancer journey was to really educate and inspire others to connect with this old new modality. And I say old new because when I started doing the research, and I'll share a little bit about my journey in a minute, when I started doing the research, I found out that the Egyptians were using plant stem cells. And then certainly it started getting documented around the 12th century with Saint Hildegard of Bingen, who was known as the first naturopath on, in our evolution, if you will. And then it's like they disappeared from the face of the earth and did not reappear until the 1950s, when an MD and naturopath in Belgium started talking and studying these plant buds. So what the heck is gemotherapy? Gemotherapy, or plant stem cell therapy, and gemotherapy is the clinical word, is basically the undifferentiated growth in the merostem of the plant that contains all of this juiciness, this vitality of these plant stem cells. And they come from that bud or that rootlet that's growing on the plant in the springtime. So they are really only available to us in the springtime as to when we can actually start to pick those buds and utilize them in a tincture. So let me share just a little bit about my journey, and then Tanya, I'll ask you to put the slides up if you don't mind.
Oh, of course not.
So I was initially diagnosed with cancer in 2012, and I was diagnosed with ductal carcinoma in situ, which is essentially, some doctors will say stage 0, some will say early stage 1. But for 3 years, those calcified cells in my body stayed in place because I was pretty balanced in my life. At that point, I had left a corporate job of 29 years, and I had a healing practice, and everything was in balance. The amount of hours I was working, the rest I was getting, the fun and the joy that I was bringing into my life. So everything was in balance and everything was great. And then in 2015, I was called to go back into a corporate job. And 3 months later, I went from this very kind of benign irritation, if you will, to stage 4. And if you know much about cancer, it usually takes years and years and years. 3 months in, I got a pretty loud message that, it was time for me to really take a deep look inward at what was going on in my life.
So I'm going to stop you right there, if you don't mind, because that's a powerful takeaway. Stress, right? We know, right, without any doubt through all of the literature, that stress is the underpavement of all chronic disease, and that cancer is a chronic disease, that stress causes atypical cells to proliferate, and a proliferation of atypical cells can go cancerous at any time. And so that is what you're inferring, yes, that you
That's
had.
exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it didn't take me long. And at that point, I chose to really become the caregiver of this amazing body that we all have, and to really begin to research where to go from there. And for 3 years, after a year, I was in remission. I did all kinds of integrated therapies, as Tanya mentioned. And life was pretty good. And then in 2018, so 3 years after my diagnosis, my cancer marker started going back up. And that's when I went, whoa, wait a minute. I thought I was complete with this journey. And I realized there was still a very, very toxic load in my body. I was taking all of the good supplements, the berberines and the CoQ10s and N-acetylcysteine and all of these wonderful immune boosting therapies that my body could not bring in because I still had such a toxic load. And that is where I say the plant stem cells found me. I was visiting a friend, and her husband was a chiropractor, and he came out with this bottle and he said, Jennifer, this has saved a lot of my patients' lives. And, very casually, I said, that's great, Dr. Michael. What is it? And as soon as he said it's plant stem cells, I literally had this visceral reaction. I felt like I was struck by lightning. And I knew in that moment there was something else at play. And so 3 months later, I ended up going to a week-long training. And on the last day of the training, the prior owner of the company ended up telling the audience that he was selling his beautiful plant company. And boom, I got that same visceral reaction. So my experience, and Tanya, you've had this, I know as well, is when you go through something where you're really faced with looking at your life and the joy and the work and all of the things that we have going on in life, that you start to look through a different set of eyes. And in that moment, I knew that I was being divinely guided down a completely different path. And luckily, I listened. And that was part of the learning. And so from 2019, January of 2019, I really started actively working with these beautiful plant remedies. And within a few months, my cancer markers were back in the normal range. And I had many other wonderful surprises, like plaque in my arteries was clear and some other amazing things. And I'll show you some pictures in a minute, but I look very different now than I did back
Well,
then.
why don't you do that? Why don't we start with the pictures? We're mostly, our listeners are female, and we are very visual, and it would be great because I've known you through this, and I think it's really powerful to share that.
Okay. So are you going to pull that up?
Is it in your presentation?
It is. It's on the
Okay, then of course I will.
It's the last page.
All right, we'll just slide through that quickly. And you said it's the last page?
There it is, right there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so 2016, that was a year, the picture kind of there in the middle with my short fuzzy hair. That was me walking the Camino in Spain a year after my diagnosis. And a little hard to tell in this picture, but the second picture you can see, and in both of those first two pictures, my eyes are dark, my face is drawn, I just look pretty heavy, and that heaviness was coming from the stress and the toxins and, really just years and years of kind of beating this beautiful vessel up. And then the picture on the right was within a year of working with the plant stem cells. And you just see the vitality in that picture, right? You just see the energy and the life force. And that is really.
And you're even stronger now. I mean, people can see you in person, but I've seen you in person. And, radiate is an understatement for Jen Pierre. It's an understatement. And so when I had, whenever I meet somebody that I want to emulate, I always ask, well, what do you do? What do you do? And, I learned from you this gemotherapy. I've always believed in natural remedies, right? Although with cancer, I did do surgery, I did do radiation, but I also did a lot of green grass, wheatgrass. I did a tremendous amount of herbs and ginger and carrot and lots of antioxidants, grape seed, etc. But when I talked to you about this, it took me a minute. I'm very scientific. I work in allopathic medicine every single day. I work with hospitals around the country. I can't risk my reputation on woo-woo. And I got very excited because I know the power of stem cells. I know how they helped me. I know what they did to destroy cancer and regenerate my cells. But then I was thinking, okay, how does stem cell therapy combine with what I know of herbology or naturopathy into something even more powerful? And my layman's view of this is that it intensely what is the word? What's the word that I'm looking for? So let's say we know that hawthorn, and I will give you my personal testimony, is good. So you can take hawthorn tea, you can take hawthorn powder. We know that it's good for regulating blood pressure, right? But then there is this, it's an uber concentration. Is that
Yeah.
correct? That comes from the
Yes.
stem cells that
Yes.
is in this liquid, right?
Yes.
And I said, okay, I've been battling borderline blood pressure for 5 years or so. And I've been battling it well with magnesium, but it's still always something that I worry about. So I took the hawthorn from you. You were kind enough to sample me, and I said, okay, well, let's just see what happens. And I sit here and I would put this in front of all the cardiologists that I work for and have been talking about it. If I take a half an eyedropper full in water in at any time of the day, doesn't need to be morning, doesn't need, I measure my blood pressure, and within 2 to 4 hours, I can see a significant 5 to 10 drops, both diastolically and systolically. It's crazy. Those of you that are watching are going to say, what? But it's like doing some of the mindful relaxation exercises that can decrease, but I don't have to put on yoga clothes. I don't even have to move. I just need to drink my hawthorn stem cells. How does that work?
Yeah. So, the bud of the plant contains something called juvenile phytohormones.
Is
That's
this
a
up above
mouthful.
somewhere?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's perfect. Look at the vitality in that. That's the rosemary plant when it's budding.
Mm.
And we all, know what rosemary is because we've probably eaten it before. It's a
Hmm.
very medicinal herb. But the juvenile phytohormones, there are about 140 of them. And basically, what they do is that is what is responsible for the medicinal power of these plant stem cells because they are known to come in and repair RNA, breakdown. They are known to rejuvenate a cell that's, mitochondrial membrane may be wearing down or breaking down. They are known to create apoptosis of unhealthy cells that are dying in the body. They're known to essentially kill those off and leave the healthy cells alone and in their vitality. So they have this intelligence, and they do it in two different ways, is what I've discovered through my research. Is one, they will essentially uh, create this vitality in the body to start to ramp up the cells, and then they're taking out the toxic load at the same time while also working on the extracellular matrix. So that extracellular matrix is a key piece because that's our communication network in our body, and so they're cleaning that up as well. And I want to just share for a quick second about the science because I do think that is so important here. There are about 12 books on gemotherapy. Most of them are really for a seasoned practitioner, which is what has inspired me to write a book. So I'm writing a book
Yay!
this year. It'll be out late fall because, again, I'm so passionate about how these plant stem cells have changed my body and my toxic
Mhm.
load. That when I go see a practitioner and they say, wow, you don't have a lot of toxicity in your body. I mean, I'm close to 60. And by, life, I should be carrying a more toxic load in my body, and I'm not. And it's because of these stem cells. So
Now let
the
me ask you
science,
this. You
yeah.
have I just get so excited when there's something that is so simple and so non-toxic and so demonstrative effective that I just interrupt my guests. I apologize. But there's a couple of things. One, there is for nurses especially, there is a trip like just coming up in May, right? To go
Yeah.
train in gemotherapy to Italy, where the original medicine and science is derived. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And
Is there a place, or can we just email you for more information?
yes, email me for more information
And
if
that
you're
is Jen.
interested. Jen at nature-provides.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me
Absolutely.
share a little bit more about that because this is what makes these beautiful plant remedies so unique. Is all of these buds are handpicked in the Apennine Mountains in Italy in the wild. So before I went, I'm a gardener. I was expecting everything to be very curated and lined up. No, you need a botanist to go over and identify, oh yes, this is a silver fir tree. And then we never pick more than 20% of the buds off the tree, which is the equivalent of pruning if you're a gardener, because we want the mother tree to keep thriving, right? And to keep her vitality. And so there's no decimation or anything like that. So we do this with nature, in collaboration with nature, and with respect and intentionality. So once that bud is picked, it's actually put within a couple of hours into organic
Wow.
alcohol and organic glycerin. And it has to, because otherwise the bud starts to open up. And when I was there in Italy a couple of years ago, I took a hedge maple bud and I put it in my pocket. And by the time we got down the mountain, it had already opened up. And so at that point, you start to lose some of that vitality. And I just want to give a very simple analogy. So, as an adult, we have lived life, right? So we have crow's feet, we have smile lines. We're a little weathered sometimes. Sometimes we have those aches and pains. But if you look at a newborn baby, their eyes are bright. They are just full of vitality and life force, and their
Mhm.
skin is soft and supple. And that is the equivalent of these, plant buds, is they have that vitality. They contain the entire genetic blueprint of the plant. So an interesting thing, if you look at essential oils, which also I have a love for, and we'll talk about those in a future
Mhm.
podcast, but they really do have this vitality and this energetic component as well as the biologic component. So they are bringing all of that juiciness and that vitality into your system and working with your body to bring everything back to communicating and working, in its highest vitality. So that's, to me, that's very unique. And you're getting every aspect of that plant, the buds, the leaves, the bark. You're literally getting all aspects of the plant in this plant stem cell form, which is
Mhm.
very different than any other type of plant remedy.
Wow. And it's funny because when I was battling cancer, or almost any time that I am battling some virus in my body, I remember, and this was a medical doctor, and he was an Indian oncologist who told me, like, he didn't tell me about anything. He wanted me to be on chemo. He was very traditional, but he said, I have a fondness. I wish I could do his accent for wheatgrass.
Mm.
And I said, "Oh, I don't think I could do that," because I was feeling ill. And he would listen. Chlorophyll in the plant world is only a few minor changes away from the healthy human blood components.
Yes.
So the healthiest human blood mimics chlorophyll, and that will act, and this is, he explained to me, will act on your blood to keep it healthy, to build it, to let it help you cure cancer, right? He was also a big proponent of chemo, but he wanted me on a few times a week green wheatgrass. I was blown away by the very idea that our blood is like chlorophyll. And just like we
Mm.
go out in the sun to manufacture vitamin D for healthy blood and anti-cancer benefits and immune benefits, just like that, a plant without sun dies without that chlorophyll. So, I get real excited about considering the science even more deeply, because it really, really is it rings true. It really rings true. Can you? I put this slide up for people to look at the basic science behind it, but I also know that you have some things on your website, correct?
Yes, we've got lots of information on the website. And as Tanya mentioned, we do work with mostly practitioners. So if you're interested in learning more, you can go to nature-provides.com and you can register as a practitioner. Once you register, you have access. So we do monthly webinars with various practitioners who utilize them. That's the beauty of this. We have naturopaths, we have MDs, we have pediatricians, we have veterinarians. So this is such a gentle therapy that we can use it with babies, with geriatric patients, with animals. And so, we have such a plethora, diversity of practitioners, which is beautiful. And each one will utilize them in their own way. So these work well with actually pharmaceuticals. They work well with adult plants. They work well with other dietary supplements.
Mm-hmm.
So you
And
don't
wheatgrass,
have contraindications with these, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing.
and wheatgrass is really, in my opinion, then, if we look at the science of gemotherapy, a type of gemotherapy because they only use the very first growth of the wheatgrass, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we do have a wheatgrass gemo.
You
So
do?
we do, yes.
I have to get that. I'm going to go online. I have to register as a provider, but that
Yeah,
is awesome, Jen,
yeah, it's
because I'm telling
amazing.
you,
And you can feel it when you take it.
well,
You
I
know,
feel the hawthorn. I
yeah,
feel the hawthorn. Now, I want to ask you a question. I'm gonna take this off because people can go on and look at this. And actually, all of those that are listening, we are going to do a continuing education credit webinar in gemotherapy that you can actually earn a continuing education credit. And I know that Jen has in plans a certification. There is a trip upcoming in May to these mountains in Italy where you can experience firsthand not only how these therapeutic agents are made, but really work with the scientists that are there to understand how you might use them for yourself and in your practice and as recommendations to family members and patients.
yeah. And
But
Dr. Canillo is going to be doing about 9 hours, 9 to 10 hours of training on this trip,
yeah.
which is unheard of to get that much time with him. He is a brilliant, brilliant scientist. He's a biochemist. He's an herbalist. He's a chiropractor. So he sees patients. He's a wealth of information. And he's really the one who was a big proponent of bringing these to the US back
Mhm,
30 years ago.
mhm.
So that will be fabulous. And then we're going to go to Southern Italy on this same trip and go see the laboratory and how these are actually macerated and made and bottled. And we're going to see the lab where they test things, which is amazing. So there's an HPTLC test that tells you what the active principles are in each of these plants. And
And
so
it's
we
May 19th.
it is May 20th to the 26th.
And they can reach you to talk about it because I know it's coming right up. So it's Jen at Nature. I like to put this up on the screen so people don't have to rewind and listen if they're not. Jen at natureprovides.com. Let me put this up for everybody. That's amazing. I'm trying to get myself there because I'm very excited about. Oops, my dogs. I'm very
We're
excited.
excited too.
Yes, they're excited too. Especially when you talk about the veterinary power of these. I hadn't even thought of that, Jen, but I think the idea of being able to be really and truly an early adopter of this, it's kind of like being one of the smart people that got into human stem cells for themselves and for beauty. I mean, people use not embryonic, but just their own blood spun
Right,
out to get to the plasma, to get to the stem cells, to inject in their face for new cellular growth.
right.
Um, it's just amazing. Now, I want to ask you a question because I want to send everybody who's listening to the website, and it's right there, nature-provides.com. What I want to ask is if I were looking just for a general energy vitality tonic herb, right?
Yes.
Because I know that none of us, except maybe you and those that are going to register as a practitioner to learn more, knows how to mix and match these things yet. It's kind of like being an herbologist, right? When you
Yes.
go to a good medical herbologist or a Chinese master, you end up with a special blend. That's great. But what if I just said to you, Jen, what one or two of these tinctures, besides my hawthorn, which I'm not giving up, is like a tonic, is something that to detoxify and protect. Nurses need protected immune systems. Nurses need to protect their cells on the daily. What would you recommend?
Yeah, so we have something called Total Body Detox that a lot of the practitioners, including myself, we use during change of season, which we're in right now, right? We're coming into fully into the spring season, and it detoxifies every organ in the body. So it has plants like hawthorn. It has plants like linden tree that are going to detoxify the nervous system. So it's literally cleaning up all the systems in the body. And it is a great one to start with. You
Can
mentioned,
children use it?
what's that? Can children use it? Absolutely. You would just
Oh
dose, you
man.
would just, use a little bit less for children,
Okay.
but it's phenomenal. And I actually use it on my pets too. So it's one that's really good because we're all trying to stay in sync with nature, right? And this is a great whole house cleanup.
Wow.
And so we have about 35 of these complexes. This is considered a complex because it's got multiple plants working synergistically together to target something specific in the body. So we also have something called Calm Heart that's specific to the entire cardiovascular system.
Wow.
Allergy Lift, which is great for allergies. And that's, one that we're working with a lot right now because we're in allergy season.
Now the
Um,
cardiac, the heart tincture, the heart complex, that is also addresses blood pressure, venal sufficiency, those kinds of things.
It does, and AFib it addresses, and any arrhythmias that are going on in the body. So that's a really good cardiovascular cleanup
Mhm.
complex, if you
And do
will.
you stay on them just seasonally and then move to something else? How would you recommend our nurses? Well, listen, if you're listening to this, you don't have to be a nurse. Go on and look at these tinctures, but as complexes. And if you are in a position of patient influence and you want better health for yourself and your family, register as a practitioner. You get discounts at a certain level. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 35% discount if you're buying and, using in your office or with your
Mhm.
patients. And then if you would prefer, you can send your patient directly once you're registered to the site. And then we will, their patient would go ahead and order, or they can drop ship. So there are three different ways to order.
Mhm.
I just want to share a couple of other plans. So we try to make it as easy for the practitioner as possible. We also have catalogs online that you can download, and it tells you all the different plant stem cell products that are available. So that's all there once you register. Um, so
So
linden
what are
tree,
your best sellers?
yeah,
The total
linden
body
tree is a great tonic for the nervous system and the brain. We're seeing
willow
a lot
tree?
of linden tree, Linden. We're seeing a lot of brain fog with folks, and that's wonderful. A lot of anxiety, wonderful for that as well, and supporting the vagus nerve in the body. And then black currant, which is one of my favorites. I use it virtually every day. It's for adrenal stress, high levels of cortisol, and it just basically brings everything, kind of takes you out of fight or flight. So it supports your adrenals and gets you out of that fight or flight. And it's the best anti-inflammatory plant. So that's one that we work with a lot because anything that ends in itis is an inflammatory issue. And that's everything,
Yeah.
right? Thyroiditis, bronchitis, anything that has that itis is having
Mhm.
that inflammatory. And black currant doesn't differentiate where it comes from, where the inflammation is originating from. It will just take care of it and just cleans it up in the body.
Wow. And you can use these at the same time. So I can get because you've mentioned black currant to me again. So I can
Yes,
get the total body tincture.
yes.
So
So
that
you
way,
can put them all. So you can put them all in the same, half glass of filtered water. if you're taking 3 or 4 of them, and then you can just sip it over a few minutes and you get it. Speaking of
Wow.
pets, my little light, bright light here jumped up.
Mhm.
Yeah, so you can use, as many. And you asked a question, Tanya, how long would you take them? I've been taking them really for 5 years. I do rotate them. So
Mm,
again, I'm a gardener. You don't ever plant tomatoes in the same place year after year after year because
exactly.
you deplete the terrain. So, now that I'm out of the woods and I'm in maintenance mode, I literally over a week's time will cover all of my organs, so I'll work actively on my liver, I'll work actively on my kidneys, I'll work on my adrenals. And so I literally will rotate those so that within a quarter, I've covered all the systems and everything in my body that needs to stay in maintenance.
I mean, this may seem very generalizing of me, but it seems like this is the art, the ancient and modern art and science of herbal medicine, kind of on steroids,
It
and
is.
much more simple and probably more quickly to result.
Yes, absolutely. Most people feel better within a week of starting one of these tinctures.
Wow.
And,
Well, I can just tell you that the Hawthorne results were immediate.
yes.
Because, part of my day job, right, is remote patient monitoring and chronic care management. So I deal daily with blood pressure patients. So anytime someone tells me something works, and I'm borderline too, I go and try it. So I tried the Hawthorne right away, and then I didn't say anything about it for a couple days because I'm like, okay, maybe something else is going on. So I stopped using it, like pseudoscientist that I am. And of course, I was still borderline, and it would be now, honestly, I haven't checked my blood pressure for a week and I haven't taken Hawthorne. So I'm going to do that tonight.
Okay.
But I have to be more consistent because what I found was as I was experimenting, I'd do the Hawthorne and it was good for the day. And then I'd forget about it the next day and it would go back up. It seems to me that kind of have to stay on it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's key is consistency because these are not blocking a symptom or fixing a symptom. They're truly going into the body to address what's out of balance. So they're fixing the root cause,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
so we've had clients who've been on, meds for their heart for 10 years and they are able to get off of them and their heartbeat gets back into rhythm and everything kind of resets. So they do bring the body back into a homeostasis, level. If you're consistent, that is the key.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm putting up, as we close down our session today, I'm putting up your email because I know that even as the CEO of a pretty busy company, Nature Provides, by the way, not only does gemotherapy, but they have truly the most tested, the most organic, the most highly concentrated aromatherapy oils. And I also can testify to how wonderful those are. And because I've used every other high quality oil around, I truly believe in them. I'm helping to raise a child with Asperger's, spectrum autism. And I find that using scents and aromas can calm him down even more quickly than breathing because it forces you to breathe. I mean, one of the reasons why stopping and smelling the roses is so powerful is that it's aromatherapy and it forces you to inhale deeply. And it's the same kind of thing with peppermint for nausea. It's a science, guys. We know, and nurses know that. Nurses can get certified in aromatherapy. So please, when you go on to nature-provides.com, take a look at ancient oils. We're going to do another Zoom like this, as well as an educational webinar in the use of oils in clinical practice. I can't wait for that. But I wanted to get this gemotherapy out there because I really feel that if you're listening to this and you want to know about this miracle of nature before anyone else does, or you want to share it with people who need it, let's do this first. And if you have some time, Please reach out to Jen about this Italy trip in May. I know that Power Up Nursing is going to partner at a later date with another program, hopefully in Italy as well, for certification. But this is the real deal, with the scientists visiting the labs, understanding how this can not only change your life, but the thousands of patients each of our nurses individually serve. Wow. You
I want
know,
to add one thing there. This is truly a unique trip because, the buds of the trees and of the bushes they only happen once a year. They happen in the springtime. And so, to be part of that, that picking and that cultivating of the buds, it's in the springtime. So we will not be able to do another trip until next spring.
mhm.
So this is kind of it for 2024. And next year, our goal is to have a couple of trips that we
Okay.
can
Mhm.
organize in the springtime. In the
I
spring.
love the words that you use, vitality and energy, because those really are the core principles of aging,
Yes.
right?
We are.
And the core principles of healing.
Yes.
Because, as many people, including, I know, Tony Robbins and others, talk about aging as a disease. And there's so much research. There's the Institute of Aging as a Disease at Harvard, right? So they're really working on treating the symptoms, especially the negative symptoms of aging, with everything from BioStem to NAD to other types of supplementation, and a lot of it is plant-based. So I think if you're listening to this, you are at the right place at the right time. You've just heard Jen Payor, the CEO of Nature Provides, and she works in two primary worlds: a world of premium aromatherapy and this ancient new medicine of gemotherapy that derives stem cells from plants for vitality and energy, medicine, and healing. I love you, Jen. I love your beauty and your brilliance and your authenticity. And I hope that our nurses that are listening to this immediately go online, immediately find out more information. I want to send just a wish out to our listeners and viewers. This, by the way, will also be on Spotify and Apple. It'll be an audio podcast as well. So if you're listening or watching, I just know, with all of my science, with all of my medical career experience, as well as my own experience as a dying human being 14 years ago, that plants are absolutely essential to healing and vitality in life. They are not instead of other options to cure disease, but they are the strongest complement and foundation for wellness that there is. And
Mhm.
I stand, really, my reputation right beside Jen as somebody who has real science to share and products that do what they say they will do. Jen, I'm going to let you take us out, because I know that besides a scientist and a businesswoman and an amazing healthcare visionary, you're also a very inspirational person. So I'd like you to take a minute just to say goodbye to our nurses and hello to them in the future. And
Yeah.
we'll see you again soon. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you so much for taking time to listen. This is my passion. It's my mission to educate and to inspire of what's possible. I believe we have these beautiful vessels of our bodies and our being, and these plants support all of it, all of every aspect of us. And that's why I love them so much. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Tanya. You're amazing. I love you, and I appreciate your mission and what you're doing to bring healing to the world at this auspicious time on the planet. Thank you, everyone.